Hi everyone, welcome to the Aiding Therapy Services channel. This is Emily. Just wanted to do a video today. Basically, last week I encountered a situation and I thought the topic dealing with that situation might be helpful for everyone here. So the topic is it's a two-part topic. So A, how do I find a therapist? And B, once I found that therapist, what questions do I ask? So I'm going to start with the first part first on tips for finding a therapist. Now there's three main things that you want to consider when looking for a therapist. So number one, how are you going to be paying? Are you going to be using your insurance or are you going to self-pay? Because that can help narrow down the field or have you go one direction or the other. Depending on where you live, you may have a lot of therapists that take insurance and a lot that don't. It's really a gamble and it just really depends on your area. So first, see if you're going to be using insurance. I would also suggest making sure that you know your coverage regarding mental health. If you have a high deductible plan, that means that you'll have to pay the contracted rate for your insurance with the therapist. And that can range anywhere from, let's say, for 45 minutes to an hour, like $68 to $109 or higher. So you really want to make sure that you know your coverage. Sometimes you might have a copay, which could be free to $50. It just really depends. So know your coverage. But aside from that, decide if you want to use insurance or if you want to go self-pay. Then the second thing that you want to consider is, do you have any preferences? Like, do you want a female or male therapist? Are you looking someone who matches up with you ethnically? Are you looking for someone who's LGBTQ affirming? Are you looking for a Christian counselor? Do you have a special situation that you would like more specialty in? So like, for example, would you like an OCD therapist or OCD specialist? Do you want someone who's kink affirming, who's polyamory affirming? Do you want someone who specializes in trauma? Do you want someone who specializes in ADHD? Looking at those things. And with that list, what I would suggest, like, what are your deal breakers and what are your must or nice to haves? Depending on your area, it may be harder to find certain specialties, just based on availability of different therapists and the makeup in terms of demographics of your area. So, must haves and nice to haves. And then finally, the thing to consider is location, location, location. Do you want to see your therapist in person or is virtual okay? And if you want to see them in person, how far are you willing to drive? Now, if I'm at home, my therapist is 15-20 minutes away. If I'm in the office, that's about 45-minute commute. So I try not to schedule when I'm at the office because that's a long drive. And it's more so like the coming back, fighting traffic. I already struggle a little bit with time management anyway. But, for those of you in rural communities, is your therapist an hour or two away? Would virtual work? Just different things like that to consider. All right. So now that you have your list of what you're looking for, answer those questions in terms of how you're paying, special considerations, and location, how do you look for one? So there's three main options that you have. So you have your regular search engines / your insurance panels, Psychology Today, and then your referrals. Referrals can be different groups, like word of mouth type things. So one would be doctors and medical professionals. Now, keep in mind, medical professionals may or may not know. It just depends on how connected they are to the area around them. My sister-in-law has asked her doctor about, I mentioned that she was struggling and would like some therapy and some help. And the way my sister-in-law told me is basically that her doctor was not very helpful and said, well, I can prescribe you something, but I don't know in terms of therapists, what's out there in the vicinity. And that's not always helpful. Not everyone wants to go the medication route, so to voice that with your doctors, they may not always know. However, other areas that may be helpful, Facebook groups. That's actually, I had a client a while ago who that's how she found me, was through a Facebook group and a recommendation through one of the ladies there. Friends can also be a good source of referrals. Start with your network first. All right. Search engines like Google is good overall, but sometimes it can be very overwhelming, and not very specific, and sometimes you get like 3 million ads up front. So, and that is not just Google, other search engines have that issue too. So keep in mind, search engines are a good way. Psychology Today is a specific website where you can narrow down by specialty and insurance, and that can help you use some of that can help you better search, especially with your criteria. And then finally, you can always double check with your insurance panel. The one thing that I caution people on is, like, if you use your insurance and you search through your insurance providers, like every insurance has like find a provider link on their website, is that insurances do not always update those. So you may not be getting the most accurate information on the website. So always cross-reference is my suggestion there. Now you found your therapist, all right? What questions should you ask, either A, on the phone when you're making the appointment, or B, once you've made your first appointment? Now, I usually recommend, not usually, I almost always recommend people see if the therapist you're interested in offers a free consultation, whether it's over the phone or in person. Most therapists that I know will offer a free consultation, even if it's like 15-20 minutes over the phone. And the reason for that is that it's not fair to expect you to have to pay if you don't like the person. All right. So number one, just double check. This information is usually typically available on a website, so double check if they have a free consultation option. So then, questions you want to ask. You want to confirm, if you're using insurance, you want to confirm with the therapist that they do take that insurance. All right. Like I said, panels aren't always accurate on their information, so to not waste your time and money, just make sure that the therapist takes your insurance. Other questions that I suggest asking is, like, what is the therapist's approach to therapy? All right. You don't necessarily need to know all the ins and outs and acronyms like CBT versus DBT versus Gestalt versus, you don't need to know all of that, because it can get very confusing and it's very jargony and you're like, oh, like I can't, right? But what is their general approach to therapy? How would their approach help you? Are they a therapist that assigns homework? Are they a therapist that's just very kind and soft-spoken and gentle? Are they very boisterous and in your face and super direct? Because every person has a feel that they're gonna be able to an approach that they will more respond to than others. All right. I offer my consultations in person, also online, so that you can get a better feel for me than over the phone, and you can see my office. If this office makes you feel comfortable and warm, great. If you're like, it's a little too juvenile for me, also okay. Everyone has their thing that they respond to. Along with the approach to therapy is, like, what's their availability? This could be also asked during the first phone call. Are they a person that has limited availability, only sees clients 3 days a week? Do they only work weekends? You have to see, like, if the therapist's availability is going to match up with your own. All right. How often do they recommend seeing patients or clients? And then what specialty do they have? do they proclaim to be a trauma specialist? Do they have a specific training that you're looking for? All these little things. Again, a lot of these questions I use interchangeably because they can be asked over the phone, but they could also be asked in person as well. And then finally, when asking, you can ask any kind of questions. So during the consultation, I don't recommend going too deep because you're still building that relationship. Think of the consultation as kind of a first date, which, not a literal first date, of course, but think of it as like a first date or like an interview. Like you're getting to know, you're getting a feel for the therapist and see if they would be a good fit with you. All right. And if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. Move on. Can it be an exhaustive process? Yes. However, that's where you want to go with the first questions that I had you consider, like, insurance, specialties, so on and so forth. And then once you get to the point where you're feeling them out, I would suggest maybe having a list of like 3 or 5 and seeing, okay, which one's going to work the best with me. Keep in mind, in most states, certainly in the state of Colorado, I tell my clients you have the right to end services at any time. Right? In most states, you're going to have that right, if not all states. Since I'm not licensed to practice in other states other than Colorado, I don't know for sure, but I assume that it would be the same. So if it doesn't feel right, even after 5 sessions, in many ways it's like finding a doctor. Sometimes you have to go through, or a hairstylist or whatever. You sometimes have to go through a few before you come to ones that you feel most comfortable. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I will upload this soon, obviously if you're watching it by now. And I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much.